College game day comes to Cincinnati finally, plus a dominant win over a quality opponent put the Bearcats in the top four to stay. All of that in games 9 through 12 of the Bearcats' 2021 college football playoff season.
Our Locked On Bearcats, your daily podcast on the Cincinnati Bearcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you so much for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. It's free and available everywhere you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. Alex Frank here with you, your host each and every day of Locked On Bearcats, free and available everywhere you get your podcast and on YouTube. Subscribe and follow to get an alert every time we drop a new episode. By the time you're listening to this, I am on my way back to Macon, Georgia from a great and well-needed vacation up at my relative's lake house in St. Joseph, Michigan. And we continue our, what I call the Locked On Bearcats vacation series, because I am technically still on vacation. And that is where we begin today, games 9 through 12 of the 2021 Bearcats college football season. We are reliving the entire season. Thursday was games 1 through 4. Friday was games 5 through 8. Today is games 9 through 12. So, week 9 versus Tulsa. It's really week 10, but it was game 9, so I call it week 9. College game day in Cincinnati, and an incredible experience. Did not think that college game day was going to come to Cincinnati, especially, after the chance of having it against UCF. I mean, why would they come to Cincinnati after the Navy and Tulane games? But then I said to myself, you know what? This is, a school that's never hosted it. They have the opportunity to potentially be in the college football playoff. More on that in just a minute. And the passion from the fan base. The passion of the fan base for both college football, for Lee Corso, for everything college football and college game day. That's why this university and this city, got college game day. Why college game day wanted to come to Cincinnati and see the passion that it brings. And Kirk Herbstreit said it afterwards, that it was one of the best game day crowds they've ever had, and certainly the best this season. McMicken Commons was unbelievably crowded, jam-packed, to be a part of and on the set of college game day was incredible. To, be on national TV and see, how a game day production is put together with the Home Depot student section, the cameras, the aerial cameras, just the, the panoramic shots that you got of McMicken. It was unbelievable. And to be a part of it, to be there, that's one of those things where you book a hotel the night before. If you live an hour away, which I did at the time, an hour away from Cincinnati, that is, you did that. And lo and behold, I was there 8:15, with my 5 layers on. It ended up being a pretty nice afternoon for football, but just, to experience college game day, the Washington State flag, all the signs, the pageantry, the passion from the fans. Look, there are a lot of things that are wrong right now in college and college athletics. There's a lot of things that are going to happen that a lot of people aren't going to like potentially. But you forget about that for 3 hours when you are watching college game day, when you are at college game day, and having been there now, and I can tell you all about it. That's what I saw. So leading up to the game, there was the anticipation of game day, Cincinnati in the national spotlight on college football's premier pregame show. There was also being number 6. And I wasn't happy about it. I know a lot of people in Cincinnati weren't happy about it. A lot of people were upset that Ohio State was ahead of Cincinnati. I didn't like that. There was a lot of people upset that Oregon was ahead of Cincinnati. There were a lot of people, I haven't said there was. There were a lot of people that were upset that Alabama was number 2 and Michigan State was number 3 just because they beat Michigan. I think a lot of people were upset that Alabama was number 2 and the committee chairman, Gary Barta, said that, the main debates were in 3 through 9. So that means Alabama was a clear-cut number 2. And a lot of people were like, well, Alabama has 1 loss. Cincinnati has none. Why is Cincinnati, why is Alabama just number 2 just because? Well, here's the thing. A lot of people were upset. I was not. Because I understood Cincinnati did not deserve to be number 2, 3, 4. They did not deserve to be in the top 4 at the time. They deserved to be ahead of Ohio State. They deserved potentially to be ahead of Oregon. They did not deserve to be number 2 or in the top 4. Number 6 was an interesting spot. If you remember last in 2020 in the college football playoff rankings, they were number 7. So that was like, okay, maybe there's a chance. There wasn't. Number 6, though, you knew Ohio State and Michigan were going to play. You knew Alabama could lose another game to Georgia. You knew Oregon could lose to Utah. And you thought Cincinnati could still win out. So even though a lot of people were upset that the Bearcats were number 6, I really don't know why, there were a lot of people who thought that Cincinnati still had it. I still thought Cincinnati had a chance. I really did. And then lo and behold, Michigan State loses to Purdue. And you say, okay, if Michigan State's going to lose to Purdue, everybody just moves up a spot, right? Now, the Tulsa game itself, Cincinnati should have lost. The game itself was in the first quarter and third quarter is great. Second and fourth quarter is awful. Tulsa could run the ball at will. They had 2 chances late to tie the game, and they almost did. Jabari Taylor's stop at the goal line was season-saving. But you're thinking, that's a close call. The closest of calls of that season. And you're sitting there thinking, they are going to somehow lose a game. They are going to somehow blow it. So, I was really concerned after the game. USF, first of all, hated the day and time of the game. Friday night at 6? What? By the way, Tulsa, I was at that game for half of it. I had to go produce the second half of the game because my shift at iHeart started at 6. USF. First off, that was on my 23rd birthday. And I think up to that point, the Bearcats or Bengals had never won on my birthday. In football, men's basketball, whatever. Never won. So I was nervous about that. Knowing me. There was no reason to be, though. USF wasn't very good. That night, I actually kind of watched the game. I was producing the St. X high school football game against, who was it? I forget who it was. Nor do I care, because by that point, my 2 weeks notice was already in it. I heard. So anyway, USF, that game was interesting because the Bearcats built a good lead. Jerome Ford didn't even play that game, and I thought the Bearcats were playing really well. Yeah, Ritter threw a pick 6, but he settled down and threw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Ryan Montgomery had a big rushing touchdown late for a cushion, a pad, put the Bearcats up 17. And by the way, that week, the Bearcats did move up to number 5. So even though you were still a little nervous about the Bearcats because of the way they had played the previous 3 weeks, the fact that Cincinnati got put at number 5 because Michigan State lost, everybody else moved up, including Cincinnati, it showed, okay, if the Bearcats win out, they are going to most likely get in the playoff because the committee actually does respect them. So I had no problem with the committee at that point. I was just hoping the Bearcats could win games. So they're 10-0 after the USF win. They're number 5 in the country, but they had a big opponent coming up in SMU. Biggest home game of the season, biggest conference game of the season, and a dominant win would put them in the top 4 to stay. I'll explain next after a word from LinkedIn. As the sun comes out and small businesses are back in business, LinkedIn Jobs makes it easier to grow your team. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the people you want to interview faster and for free. So, create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then, add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockdowncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockdowncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. SMU coming to town the weekend before Thanksgiving. Last year, the Bearcats were 10-0. Some people thought SMU could upset the Bearcats. I'm like, listen, that's not going to happen. I thought the Bearcats would win. I thought they'd win by 17 points, and sure enough, they won by 34. So that game I was at, the first half of that game. That was my last day as an employee at iHeartMedia Cincinnati. I produced the second half of that game. So I'm there for the first half. And there was always one guy who worked for ASAP Sports that I was really good friends with. His partner, I think both in work and in life, her name was Susan. I forget her last name. Was it Susan? Yeah, incredibly nice woman. Loved them both. Still do. Haven't talked to them since I've left Cincinnati or, moved from Cincinnati for the time being. And I remember Ed saying to me, oh, hey, I hear they're going to have a deep route to Tyler Scott, first offensive play of the game. And I'm like, all right, we'll see about that. Not like that. I wasn't being snarky, but I'm like, all right, we'll see. So sure enough, the first play comes around after a great defensive first defensive possession. Ritter drops back. Tyler Scott runs a deep route, go route, 56 yards, touchdown. Bearcats are up 7-0. And you're feeling pretty good. You're feeling like Cincinnati's in control, and they were all game. Yeah, they missed an extra point. I'm not worried about that. The chili special, the double reverse touchdown to Ritter. Desmond Ritter caught a touchdown his senior day. Him bringing out his daughter for the senior day celebration. That was cool. So many things went into that day and game, and the Bearcats ran away with it. You were concerned about SMU's offense averaging 500 yards a game? Well, they only amassed 196 in that game. So an incredible defensive performance by Cincinnati. Ritter goes over 300 yards, throws for, I think, 3, maybe 4 touchdowns. I don't remember the exact totals. Bearcats are 11-0. They've, won every regular season home game of Ritter's career that he started. Anyone who was a graduating senior last year never saw a Bearcats home defeat. Then we go to ECU in week 12. Actually, I'll save that for segment 3. So now you're thinking, okay, the Bearcats are back in business. They're blowing teams out. They're dominating. But you really didn't know if they were going to be able to crack the top 4. Well, sure enough, that night, Tavion Thomas and the Utah Utes beat Oregon. And Oregon was 3 at the time. So Oregon drops way down. Ohio State moves up to 2. Alabama moves up to 3. No, I'm sorry. Ohio State was 3. Alabama was 2. Ohio State jumped Alabama because they whitewashed Michigan State. As well, they should have jumped them. That's fine. But when Cincinnati got revealed at number 4, and you always have that feeling when you think you know what's going to happen, but you're like, you don't know because you've been through it before. You think something's going to happen, and it doesn't. But Cincinnati getting that 4th spot, that was powerful. That was powerful. To see Cincinnati number 4 in the college football playoff rankings with just 2 weeks to go, I'm like, okay, now we know the mission. Win, perhaps win dominantly, and the Cincinnati Bearcats were going to be in the college football playoff. The dream was going to be a reality. Any feeling that you had about the committee not respecting Cincinnati, that went away that Tuesday night before Thanksgiving. You now knew what you had to do to reach the college football playoff. You had to win at ECU. You had to win against Houston. And perhaps beat ECU convincingly and post at least a good solid win over a really good Houston team who you knew you were likely to face in the championship game. And there you go. Now, at that point, we were talking about the Bearcats being number 4 in the country. At that point, while it was inevitable they were going to beat ECU, they still hadn't clinched home field advantage in the conference championship game. They needed to win at ECU to do that. So if you're worried about a letdown at ECU, which I was nervous about that game being the last game of the regular season, you don't want the hopes to end there. ECU was actually good though, 7-4, and had some good wins on the season. Plus, if you remember the game in 2020, how salty Mike Houston, their head coach, was after the game, well, you were nervous they were going to make sure that ECU was going to be ready to play that game. But as we find out, Cincinnati was too. Up next, Week 12 at ECU, another Friday game, which I liked, and a game that, once again, was hard to watch, but at the same time, was a good win. I'll explain next after a word from BetOnline. You see, betonline.net is the fastest and easiest way, or number one source, for your betting needs and sports info. You can find all of the latest sports news and league reviews and news, including this year's NHL Stanley Cup playoffs and Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so Week 12 at ECU. Was actually nervous about this game because it was a big game. ABC, Black Friday. ECU was 7-4, better than they've been in recent years. And the last time the Bearcats went to Greenville, North Carolina, which I don't know if I would ever go to a game there. And I don't have to worry about that now because they're going to lead the AAC after this year, Cincinnati. And the last time the Bearcats went to Greenville, they were down 12 in the fourth quarter. Remember that wild 46-43 game when Sauce Gardner had a pick six and Sam Crosa had to hit a field goal at the gun to win, and the Bearcats gave up over 500 yards passing to Holton Ahlers, their quarterback? Well, he was back this year for this game. And the Bearcats absolutely romped ECU the last time they played them. 55-17 in Cincinnati on a Friday night during the COVID year. Mike Houston, their head coach, did not like the fact that the Bearcats ran a fake punt in the fourth quarter up by, I believe, 32. He did not like the fact that they ran Cameron Young 75 yards for a touchdown on the final play of the fourth quarter, up 32. Sorry, I had no problem with that. See, didn't know if there was going to be some saltiness leading up to this game. And the fact that it was the last game of the season, it was on Black Friday, it was on the road, it made you feel a little nervous. But in spite of all of that, Cincinnati took control in the second quarter. Leonard Taylor with a touchdown, Jerome Ford with a touchdown, Sauce Gardner with a blocked field goal return for a touchdown. Anything that you were nervous about after a first quarter where ECU got 3 points, Cincinnati had 2 drives, promising drives and field position stalled, you weren't nervous after that game. Ritter became, he set multiple school and American Conference records in that game. Still felt like there was something on the table, though, because the Bearcats didn't really play well down the stretch. Final score stayed at 35-13 for a while. It's a good final score. I did not think the Bearcats were going to drop out of the top 4. They did not. But, again, you still felt like, they've never faced a caliber of opponent of Houston yet. What's going to happen when they're in a dogfight? All the time this season, the regular season was, just building week by week the hope and the possibility of going to the college football playoff. But at the same time, you kept thinking that you were on the brink of disaster. And yeah, that was not a good feeling. So there was, So there was still that feeling of, well, Are we actually going to be able to beat Houston? Are we going to be able to finish this deal? Is the Cincinnati sports curse going to knock on the door? Because the Cincinnati sports curse still existed at the time. You just didn't really know. And that's where the American Championship, by the way, if you're wondering where I was for the ECU game, I was at home at my mom's house. My sister was in town, so we all watched that game together. I have a very unique experience from the American Championship game. I have a very unique experience from the college football playoff game. Those two games discussed before, during, and after, all those games discussed in full detail on Locked On Bearcats tomorrow. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at Frankie_90 with 2 N's, NNATI. You can follow me on Instagram, AlexFrank9_, or email me at alex3frank@gmail.com. Thanks for making Locked On Bearcats your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Big 12. Get more on the Big 12 by making Locked On Big 12 your second listen with everyday host Josh Neighbors and the local experts of Locked On take you across the Big 12 in 30 minutes. Locked On Big 12, your second listen. As for me, I will be back tomorrow to relive the American Championship and the college football playoff game. We have so much more to get to later on this week. Hopefully getting John Garcia Jr. back on the show. Did not have him on a few weeks ago. Wish we could have. His thoughts from the Elite 11 camp out in LA. Brady Dragish, Bearcats commit, his performance. Who else the Bearcats have their eyes on from the Elite 11 camp? His thoughts on the Bearcats linebackers. So much more to get to this week. And I will be back tomorrow to wrap up this vacation series because, well, by the time you're listening to this Monday morning, I am flying back from St. Joseph, Michigan from vacation and didn't think I was going to have time to record. Tomorrow's on Monday, so I went ahead and did that earlier last week. You'll enjoy it, though, as we wrap up my version of the Locked On Bearcats vacation series. Looking forward to that. For the Locked On Bearcats podcast, I'm Alex Frank. Have a great rest of your day, and I will be back tomorrow.